So what we do when we're out in the field is we collect pieces of all the tissues, we preserve them for both cellular work, for molecular work, it depends on what we're doing. So there's two kind of major studies we do. One is when there are actually fish kills, a lot of dead fish, or fishermen see a lot of fish with lesions. So maybe red sores or black areas of the fish, all sorts of raised areas we might see. So sometimes the states ask us to come out and help to try to determine what might be causing those abnormalities. The other thing we do is use fish as an indicator of environmental health, particularly the aquatic environment. So fish are constantly in the water, and they can tell us a lot about what's going on. And as you know, we all use the water to recreate. A lot of people get their drinking water from the rivers and streams. And so it's kind of important for us also to know what's going on in the water. If you want to try to actually analyze water for so many of the things it can be in, it's really, really expensive. So we use fish as sort of indicators. We know that there's certain responses that the fish have to certain chemicals, and that way we can know kind of what to look for when we're looking. So, does anybody know like what kind of things might cause lesions or disease in fish? What is it? Water bottle. Trash or contaminants? Contamination? Yes. The plastic?
Parasites?
Yes. Parasites.
What did she say?
Parasites. Chemicals. What else?
Predators?
Predators eat them, yeah. How about, do you think fish get viruses? Yep. Fish get viral diseases, they get bacterial diseases, they get fungal diseases, and they get a lot of parasites. So all of those things can tell us a lot about what's going on in the fish. A lot of you now have heard, obviously COVID, and we talk about immunosuppressed people getting sicker from it. Well, it's the same with fish. Fish have an immune response. They produce antibodies just like we do. And so when chemicals affect their immune system, they're immunosuppressed. And they will get sick from bacteria and other things that may not have affected them normally. So those are all of the kind of things we look at. So what I'm going to do today, and you can come up if you want to see it closer, there will be blood. We don't always have to kill the fish when we do some of these things. I'm going to put the fish, we can anesthetize the fish, which is basically putting it to sleep like you all would, if you have an operation, you'd be put to sleep. We can do that, and then we can put it in fresh water and it will come back. So there are some cases where we actually lightly anesthetize the fish, take a scraping, maybe take a fin clip, take a blood sample, and then we can let it go if it's an endangered fish or it's somebody's pet or whatever. Today I'm actually going to kill the fish so that you can see what's inside of the fish and some of the organs that we take out and we look at. All right. plate there, right? They make it pop out so you can see it. Unfortunately, we can't do that with fish. So we kind of have to know where we're going.
And you guys, if you want to, are welcome to come up closer and kind of gather around. I'm going to try to first show it on the TV, but the Wi-Fi keeps kicking out, so I'll do the best I can for those sitting back.
So what I did was I went in till I felt the backbone. Because I know that the major vein runs right under the backbone. So with the needle I could feel the backbone and then I just pull back a little and I can get a blood sample.
What sort of things do you test for with the blood sample? Any like disease?
So there's a couple things. With the blood as it is now, I can put a drop on a slide, make a smear, and look at the cells.
A little bit.
Most of what we do look at the cells, but when we get back to the lab, we put the blood in this and we keep it cold. And when we get back to the lab, we centrifuge it, and that separates the cells from the liquid. The liquid is called plasma or serum, and we do a lot of analysis in the plasma and the serum. So we can look for hormones, we can look for various enzymes, we can look for antibodies to certain diseases. Depends on what the study is, what you can look for. Yep.
Here's the blood sample from the fish.
Then the next thing we do is cut the fish up. So there's the gill. See how feathery it looks? Do you know why that is?
Trap the oxygen particles.
So there's just tiny capillaries in there. And the water has to run over those capillaries so that they can take the oxygen out. What might those little tiny dots be? A lot of times there's little parasites on the fish gills. And if there's not a lot, it doesn't kill the fish. But if it gets really bad, it could kill the fish. This fish actually looks pretty healthy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I killed it, so I can show you.
This is actually really cool.
Okay. So, do you know what that is?
The liver.
What that organ is? The liver. Do you see all those spots in the liver?
Yeah, those are parasites.
Those are all parasites. All those, that spot and then the tiny little ones. To know exactly what parasite it is, we'd have to look at it under the microscope. How about this? Do you know what this is?
The swim bladder.
No?
Stomach.
The swim bladder is right here and I punctured it.
Oh, yeah.
So what's this yellow stuff here? It is an organ. What is it?
An organ?
No? Anybody?
Did you say the stomach? I think that's what it is.
This is the stomach right here. Would it help if I told you it was a female fish?
The ovaries.
Those are the ovaries, and
I was
those
like, why is it yellow?
those little spots are actually the immature eggs. So it's already gearing up to lay eggs for next year. So in the
for baby?
Well, they've already spawned for this year. They spawn in the spring. So now they're going to get ready for next year. How about this dark red organ? Oh, not that one. That's poop.
Yeah.
The red organ underneath there.
The heart.
No. What else might have a lot of blood in it? Do fish have lungs?
No.
No.
I thought that was a fallopian tube for a second.
No. That's actually the spleen. It stores blood, just like our spleen does. So up here is where the heart is.
It's weird how it's so close to their head.
Well, because the blood wants to go from the gill to the heart to be pumped. Can you see that it's still pumping?
Oh, that's weird. Wow.
Is it still alive?
Well, not really. Just like if we wanted to do take a human heart from somebody that was dead to transplant, you have to keep it beating, right? So it will beat actually for quite a while.
It actually looks like it actually hurt. Before you cut it open. Isn't it fully dead after you dislocated it from the body?
Well, you know what?
It is dead. It's just sometimes.
Why does
that
it
just
keep
happens.
beating? You know?
Because it still has blood in it.
Well, it still has, the cells still have energy in them. And even when I take it out of the fish, it's gonna keep beating if I can get that cut off.
What is that white part on it?
So how many chambers, somebody asked this in the last class, how many chambers does your heart have? How many parts?
4?
I haven't learned that yet.
Wow. I'll take a picture of that.
See, it'll keep beating for quite a while.
That is so
It's
crazy.
going to be disgusting.
I don't know, can you see that?
Can I take it? What is it? Fish heart.
What? The heart. Why are you paying attention? Well, because I can't see back there. Sorry. That's really cool. It's still beating. Crazy.
Actually, if I put it on mine, where my pulse
line
is,
up.
it'll... One of my students learned that.
My mom's
Were you a
going to
teacher?
throw up.
She's gonna throw up, she needs not to look then.
Yeah.
Now I'm just doing it on purpose. She irks my soul sometimes, so.
Are you a teacher?
Mostly I do research,
Yeah.
but I do have graduate students.
Oh, okay.
Anybody
That looks
want
like
it
the
on
part
theirs?
of the fish.
No, thank you.
It looks like the part of the fish.
So if we were doing this for real, for our fish health assessment,
It
we'd,
looks like the eyes are black.
we'd actually take pieces of each of these organs, the ovary, the spleen, the kidney, the liver, the gills. They have a posterior and an anterior kidney.
I have a quick question. Are fish allowed to have cysts?
Have cysts? Well, a lot of parasites form cysts. Is that what you mean?
Like, no. Are they allowed to get a cyst? And, like, are are fish allowed to be able to get a cyst?
A cyst?
Like a cyst under their stomach.
I don't know
Yeah,
what that
they can get them. They're just cysts, like parasites cause them to have cysts and stuff.
is. That what you mean? Yeah, they actually get.
Because my stepmom had to get surgery to get a cyst down there to two body parts that only a woman have, her ovary and her fallopian tube. So it was sad because I was here for 4 days.
Most of their cysts are due to parasites, but fish also get a lot of the things we do, so they get cancer. They get tumors. So in the last class I did, they were asking about different types of fish. Do different types of fish get different things? And it does depend a lot on where they live. So some fish live closer to the bottom, and they're going to get exposed to things that are in the sediment. So one of the things that we looked at in this river, as well as the Potomac, because there were population decline. Can you all hear? Should I use the microphone? Because there were population declines, when we looked at the fish to determine, when we look at it through the microscope, we saw something called intersex. And that's when the male fish actually have immature eggs in their testes. So this is a female, and you can see those tiny little eggs. The male fish would have tiny little eggs like that in their testes. They would still reproduce, but what we found was that their sperm was less motile, and they produced less sperm, and so populations were declining. The same kind of chemicals that induce that also cause immunosuppression, so they were also getting a lot of infectious diseases. So somebody asked the question, do all fish get intersex? And actually here in the Susquehanna, we have seen it in a couple different ones, but it's mainly been in the bass. And that's because the bass are living up in the water column, and they're also predators. So they're eating and they're magnifying a lot of things. We did a study in the Great Lakes, and we looked at bass, and we looked at bottom-feeding fish, bullhead, catfish, and white sucker. In the white sucker and the bullheads, we see a lot of tumors. So we saw liver tumors and skin tumors. We hardly ever see tumors in the bass. In the bass, we saw intersex. We hardly ever saw intersex in the white sucker and the bullheads. So it really depends on the species that you're looking at and what it is you're trying to study and understand. And that's how we choose what fish we might want to look at. Do y'all have any questions?
Is the intersex due to a gene mutation, or how does it come about?
We're not sure exactly the mechanism yet, but what we have found is that it is primarily associated with exposure to chemicals when the fish are really young and they're going through sexual development. So in the first few weeks of their life is when we feel that's when it's induced. Any other questions?